You're listening to Power Talk, Berkeley Electric Cooperative's official broadcast about the cooperative, our communities, and ways to use energy wisely. And now, let's join our hosts for today's episode. Good morning and welcome to this edition of Power Talk. My name is Micah Ponce, the communications specialist with Berkeley Electric Cooperative, and I guess I'm going to be driving this bus today along with my co-host, Miss Libby Roerig, who is the Director of Marketing and Communications. Good morning.
Yeah, it is a good morning. And I'm feeling like the rookie in the room today. I just, we've got over 60 years of collective experience in this room.
Yes.
Experience, not age, experience. But
Yeah, for those of you who are watching, we do have a full house today. Everybody wave to the camera.
Yay.
And if in case you didn't see that, that's because you're not watching. So you got to, subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Just look for Berkeley Electric. We are there. But today, we're welcoming Amy Langdon, and we are welcoming Mr. Shawn Milligan, respectively, our Vice President of Member Services and our Operations System Manager. And I think we're going to be talking about storms today, aren't we?
Yeah, communication around storms.
'Tis the season.
Yeah.
Yes, as like Amy said, we are rolling right into hurricane season, summer storm season. So, unfortunately, outages are going to be something that we're going to have to deal with occasionally. Hopefully not very often. But as Libby mentioned, everybody in the room for the most part is a tenured, seasoned co-op employee who's been around for a little while, and y'all have worked your way up the career ladder, and I want to say once again, thank you for joining us again today. And we're going to talk a little bit about communications of a before and after a major weather event. So, Amy, you're a regular sort of on Power Talk, first time here in the new studio. Yeah. Welcome, and we've supplied you with the official welcoming mugs. Power Talk. So you make sure you use that, and show that around, make everybody else jealous, so they want to be able to join in. Shawn, first time on the show.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
But so Amy, you've been here before, but give us a real quick refresher for some of the folks who are just joining us. What do you do here at the co-op?
Yep. So I am the Vice President of Member Services. Basically, any interactions that our members are having with us on a daily basis rolls through my department. So phone calls, in-person visitors, live chat, emails, all the things. We're kind of the front line for all of it.
How many employees are in member services?
We hover around 50.
Okay.
So depends on the day. But we hover right around 50.
So of roughly 300 employees, 50 are member services.
Yep.
So large chunk.
Yep.
Large chunk.
Yep.
And,
well, that's because we got a lot of members out there.
Yeah, those 50 cover all 100,000 of those folks out there.
Yeah.
And then, during storms, our roles change a little bit. So during storms, my group is responsible for phone calls and outage calls and those kind of things, but also crew support and feeding
Cooking.
and housing, all of those linemen and everyone else who is working during a storm. So dual role, just depends on the day. But.
Now, Shawn, we said you're currently the operations system manager, but that's not where you started at the co-op. So give us a little bit of a background. So what have you done for us as you've grown as an employee here?
So Shawn Milligan, been here for 26 years. Originally started out in system control, which is our dispatching center. Working in there for about 3 years. Back then, mapping and dispatching were one department. It split, and I was fortunate to be able to go to the mapping department, worked there for about 11 years. The opportunity came for me to expand, and I moved to engineering. I was an engineering tech, pretty much assisting the engineers in making circuit diagrams, programming the SCADA system, anything that has to do with future planning, work development stuff. After that, I went to IT for 2 years, and that leads me to where I am currently.
Wow.
Operations system
Jack
manager.
of all trades.
Yeah, but everything kind of centered around distribution, so I'm pretty familiar with our entire distribution system. I've pretty much written this entire system many times.
So you're the man with a plan.
Yeah.
especially when it comes to outages.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully we don't have too many.
Well, like we mentioned, unfortunately, we are in the middle of hurricane season. We're about halfway through, and this summer has been, in case you had noticed, it's been hot.
Just a little.
And when it gets hot, that unfortunately means there's a better chance for more hurricanes and some stronger hurricanes. And I think that the scientists out there at NOAA have been, reevaluating their hurricane forecast and have bumped it up a little bit from the normal level to above normal levels. So we're knocking on wood, haven't seen anything major yet. Hopefully we're going to be able to keep it that way, and we'll get lucky to skate out through the rest of the summer.
Yep.
But, the low country, even if we don't have a hurricane coming our way, we have thunderstorms pretty much all summer long. Every afternoon, every weekend, it seems, we're getting rained on. So, Amy, we said your team's on the front lines when it comes to serving our membership. So what are some of the steps that members can take now before the storm to make sure they're ready for when an extended outage comes our way?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is to make sure that your phone numbers are updated on your account. Our outage system, when you call, it's trying to pull your account number from the phone number you're calling, and the fastest way to expedite reporting that outage is to make sure we have updated phone numbers. The other thing I would say is making sure you have a Smart Hub account and that you can log into your Smart Hub account. There are quick links to our outage map, but also the status of your outage, if you do have an outage, shows on Smart Hub. So it's a quick way for you to check and see kind of what's going on without having to pick up the phone and call, and just have a plan. The biggest thing, especially if you're in a sensitive situation, you want to make sure you have a plan for you and your family. So if something does happen, if power does go out, you're not in an overly stressful situation more than it has to be. So that's the biggest thing we see in the contact center is a lack of planning tends to put more stress on an already stressful situation. So.
I think one of the big things I know that we usually run into with storms is, especially if you have special medical needs or equipment that requires power, that's one of the most important things that we need to ask our members to make plans for.
Absolutely, yeah. We can't guarantee that the power won't go out, and if you have a big enough storm, it will go out. So, like I said, trying to make an already stressful situation a little less stressful, have a plan, somewhere to go, a generator, something. So when the power does go out, if it goes out, you're okay for a little while. And it gives us time to assess the situation and get the power back on.
Yeah, because, during an outage, as soon as it's safe to do so, we're getting our guys out and actively working, sometimes around the clock, to bring everybody back into service. But depending on where you live, it might take a minute to get you back on, no matter how quickly and diligently we're working.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm born and raised Berkeley County, grew up in Alvin. So even now, living in a rural area, outages happen. And the farther out you are, the longer it takes. So you just need to plan and prepare accordingly. Yeah.
And, as Shawn, you said you've ridden just about every part of our service territory. We serve a pretty diverse area. I mean, we go from Allendale to Goose Creek to Mount Pleasant area, and everywhere in between. So we've got like the Sea Islands, Kiowa, Seabrook, Wadmalaw. So depending on where you are in our service territory, it might take a minute for somebody to get out to you. Even though we have crews stationed all around the service territory, different needs, different population densities. It all affects how quickly that power is going to be restored. Unfortunately, sometimes it does take a little bit longer. Like you said, Amy, if you're living out at the end of the line, unfortunately, you are most likely going to be one of the last people to get the power back on, just because there are those certain steps that we have to take in order to be able to get the power back on. Shawn, same thing to you, same timetable. We're talking before the storm. What does a typical day look like for dispatch when we get notification that like a major storm is imminent and rolling our way?
That's when we begin the planning phases of organizing crews, organizing shifts. During a normal work week, we usually have 2 dispatchers here during the day. and usually on the night shift there's one. But during the storm, we would have 4 dispatchers here with crews to help support them. They would have like a backup person to help them. We work up the districts. Normally during a regular work day, they are responsible for all districts, just the 2 people. During the storms, we break up. We assign one dispatcher to one district so that they can focus on that one district, so that we make sure that we address those situations that need to be addressed. We try to always be mindful of safety, trying to keep the crews separated, make sure that we are communicating with the people that are assigned to certain substations. We'll have certain senior line crews assigned to certain substations, and we just need to communicate those outages to those guys so that they can address them.
When the power goes out and y'all start working, I guess, I think we've touched on it before with some of our other guests, but sort of walk me through the steps. Where are we starting at in terms of power restoration? What are our major steps in getting the power back on? I mean, I know that y'all walk through with the crews, sort of communicating with them, but when we're trying to get the power back on to folks, what are our big steps for getting it back on?
Depends on if there's transmission out. If Santee Cooper has lost transmission to one of our subs, we try to get that restored first. And we try to take the mainline feeds down away from the substation. So anything from the substation down, if there's broke poles, if there's lines down, we address those first, because you have to get the main pipeline before you can get the end of the line.
Right.
So we try to make sure that all of the main lines are up, all of the 3-phase lines are addressed, that any major areas, because sometimes there are areas that have more damage than others. So we try to have as many crews in those areas that we possibly can, making sure that we have adequate enough help, and the areas that need more help.
So as you guys are getting calls about outages, what members are hearing around the outage, you guys are communicating that information to the crews, and then as the crews are out in the field, they're communicating back to you what they're seeing and what their needs are, that sort of thing.
Correct. There's constant communication between us, the contact center. They address any member concerns. Somebody says they have a pole down in their yard, lines down in their yard. We try to, anything safety related, we try to address those, make sure that, public safety is addressed. And we're in communication with the line crews to make sure that the area that they need help, if they need extra help. We also have contract crews in that, sometimes we have out of town crews come in to assist us. We make sure that whoever is leading them around, we have constant communication with them, so that we can, get power back on as quickly as possible.
Yeah, we've also in the past had like the sheriff's department and local EMS and all call and tell us what they're seeing as well. So in the contact center, it's not uncommon to hear from someone working for the fire department or the sheriff's office saying, hey, I just drove up on this, just letting you guys know there's a pole down here, there's a pole down there. And so we're constantly feeding that information into dispatch, into system control, so they can also be aware if they're not already.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a great point of some even just average citizen sees lines down to give us a call or call 911 to report it. And so that way we can make sure they're de-energized and that things are safe and I'm not going to hurt anybody.
Yeah, and it's very helpful to know you have a outage in a certain area. It helps to know that it's because of this broke pole that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the things that helps us with that now is our new metering or, digital metering system that we have out there compared to, I mean, we've been here for a while, you and I, and, everybody's sitting at this table for the most part. So we've seen several different, iterations of meters from the old mechanical ones to the digital ones. I mean, what are the advantages of that digital system that we're working off of now compared to the old mechanical meters?
Right now, with the new AMI system, when a meter goes out, it pings us. It pops up an outage on our outage system. And we are able to, anytime a lineman asks us to ping an area, we can, what we call pinging, and it sends a signal out to the meter to say, are you there? And if it doesn't come back, then we know that the power's out in that particular area. So it allows us to know, hey, this guy's definitely off if somebody calls us and says, hey, my power's out. So we can see on our map, hey, this area has a lot of outages. This area has fewer outages, so we can address those outages first.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously that helps us get the power back on a little bit sooner. For the members, we still want them to call in and, make sure that the outage is reported, but the system is basically reporting back these days for us. So by the time the member calls in, we've usually got a pretty good idea that, the power is out, and, especially, how many folks are in that area that are affected. So I think that's one of the things that makes it a little bit easier or quicker for us to, get the outages resolved.
Yeah, and if someone lives out in a rural area and they live a couple miles from their nearest neighbor, they need to make sure they call in and don't assume that we know about it.
Yeah.
Because we don't want them to be left behind. They might be out of town, come back and see their lights off and assume that someone else reported it. Just make sure you report it, and if it's not back on in an adequate amount of time, call again.
Yeah, I mean, because there's a variety of different reasons why it could be off. That could be something that just affects just your particular service. It could be a limb on the line, or the breakers in your house could have tripped because of a surge or something along those lines. So always make sure you call our outage number. What are some of the other ways? I mean, in case for those who are listening, if you need to call the outage number, it is 1-888-253-4BEC. Pretty easy to remember.
You got it.
But I mean, there are other ways to report outages as well. We've got, as Amy mentioned, we've got our Smart Hub, which allows folks to, you can report an outage straight from your phone. If you have power or a laptop, you can report it, through online. And I believe we have any other other methods yet? Can people text in outages, or is it mainly just the online through through Smart Hub, and mainly through the Smart Hub?
Yes.
And through our automated outage reporting line where folks can call in.
Yes.
Okay. Well, for those of you who are just joining us, we are talking to Miss Amy Langdon and Mr. Shawn Milligan about communications revolving around storms before, during, and after. I think we've covered before for the most part, and a little bit during. Amy's, when the storm is here, what can members do to sort of help them, essentially, in terms of reporting outages or getting, information on Smart Hub? What are some of the things they can do in their house, I guess, to make it easier once we're trying to get power back on? Any tips?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is, like we've mentioned, utilizing Smart Hub to kind of check your status. Shawn mentioned the way we ping meters as line crews restore things. There are times where we may think your power is back on and it might not be because there's another problem we're not aware of. So the biggest thing is if you look in Smart Hub and it shows your power's back on and it's not, definitely report it. Give us a call or report it through Smart Hub because as we do start that restoration process, there are times that we might think it's back on and it's not. So the biggest thing is, like I said, check your status, make sure that it accurately reflects what's going on in your home, and checking the outage map. You don't always have to call us. We get a lot of calls during outages and wait times are long. You can pull up that outage map quickly from Smart Hub and take a quick glance at that and kind of see what we're dealing with. And if it shows that it's out in Smart Hub, we know it's out. And we're working on that. So you don't have to keep calling us once it's showing that it's off. So that's kind of the biggest thing is, we do get a lot of calls. And so people who are calling every 30 minutes to check when is it going to be back on, we don't always know. So it doesn't change that quickly for us. So.
Well, and social media during an extended outage is a really great place to get a little more information about the outage in general. It's not a good place to report your outage. We don't take that kind of information on Facebook or any of our other social channels. But if you want to check in on any of the social channels for an update about, the guys working, that sort of thing, we do try to put as up-to-date information as possible. But we don't report on minor short outages. It's usually the bigger more extended outages that we're reporting on social media.
Yeah, we definitely have folks watching our social media feeds during a major outage, but we have a lot of people, there's a lot of chatter, a lot of posts, a lot of comments. So it's easy for us to be able to miss something that's going through there. And like Libby mentioned, that Facebook is not tied into our outage system.
Right.
So the safest, most sure way is to give us a call or report it through Smart Hub, especially if there is a safety concern, like Shawn mentioned, if there's a line down or anything along those lines. And Amy, you were mentioning the outage map, and we just want to let everybody know that, that outage map is a really good for giving you a general idea of what's going on out there. But, during a major outage, it's more or less controlled chaos. I mean, I know Shawn in the dispatch, or what do we call it? Do we call it dispatch? Do we call it system control, operations? We've got so many different terms for it. What do we call it?
Whatever you like. The new title is system operations.
All right, for system operations, there's a ton of stuff going on in system operations, and you're all getting reports in from the field. And a lot of times we'll get something on, our linemen will be able to restore a section, but then they may have to take it back down to do further repairs. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are in flux when it comes to major outages. So one might be on for a minute, might be back off for a minute. Doesn't necessarily mean that, we're not making progress, but those numbers can change pretty rapidly. Is that correct?
That's correct. Sometimes there are whole section of lines that they have to rebuild because according to the severity of the storm, they might have to rebuild 10 poles in a row. And at times they have to heat the circuit up, and for safety reasons, sometimes they have to take the circuit back out so that those guys to remove a big tree off of the line or just scenarios like that. So we always keep safety first, so they might have to take the circuit out. Your lights might go off, but that doesn't mean that we're not working on it. And I think one of the biggest misunderstandings is people, if they don't see a truck in front of their house, they assume that we're not addressing the issue.
Correct, right.
Especially if you live at the end of the line or in rural areas. We tend to try to get the larger areas on first, try to get the main feeds on so that power can be supplied to the end of the line. It does us no good to go to the end of the line and there's a major issue between the substation and your house. So we try to always address the major areas first and proceed, proceed after that.
And with things changing so frequently during an outage, that's one of the reasons why, of course, everybody wants to know, when is my power going to be back on?
Yep.
But that sort of that controlled chaos with crews having to be dispatched to this area and having to go do repairs in that area, I guess that sort of contributes to the fact that we can't say, okay, well, you've been out for an hour and a half, but we'll have you back on by 10:15. Everybody wants to know exactly when their power is going to be on, but there's so much going on when it comes to a major storm in terms of orchestrating all that unfortunately we're not able to give specific ETAs for when people are going to have their power back on.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we've been in this new facility, our new headquarters, for a little over a year now, and unfortunately, we've put it through the test with Hurricane Ian last late September, early October. Shawn, what was that like for you guys? I kind of feel like your workspace is one of the most improved with this move to the new facility. You guys were in a small space, and now it's a much more efficient, effective space. What was that like this last storm season?
Well, I was still in IT at that time.
Oh, sorry.
But from what I hear, there was a lot less clutter, a lot less noise because you have more space. The white noise kind of helped with that as well because you have 4 dispatchers dispatching 4 different districts. There was a lot less radio noise. You're still going to have some radio noise because crews are constantly communicating with us.
Yeah.
But overall, the bigger room helps with a lot of the noise congestion.
And plus, during a storm, we have now, in addition to our new operations center, we have what we call the war room that's attached right behind it, where we're able to bring in folks from operations and engineering to help sit in there and keep an eye on what's going on in terms of the restoration efforts. I remember back in the old building, we'd have to squeeze people in there and, try to make space, and everybody would have to try to find somewhere to sit during the outage because we all know what the operations center used to look like. It
Yeah.
was pretty tight.
Well, and in our new facility, there's a glass wall between the operations center and the war room. So literally the leadership of engineering and operations is sitting in the war room, taking calls, coordinating mutual aid, and they can just look up on the big screens and see the outages in real time, see a weather report. It's just so much information just in 360 around everybody who's working to get the power back on.
Yeah, and I will say, being in this new facility with that last storm, with the contact center being right there next to system control, instead of also calling system control, we could make notes, jot them down, and run them over there. So we get a lot of we get burned out with phone calls. It's nice to just jot a note and go stick it on their desk and say, "Hey, we just got this."
Yeah.
Because they're just as busy as we are, and getting them on the phone is not necessarily easy, even though we're in the same building and right there. So being able to run things back and forth has been very helpful.
Yeah. And, a little bit back to social media in the interest of managing expectations, we're talking about all the moving pieces that are moving so quickly during a major outage. Again, we know people are sitting at home and all they can do is think about how they don't have power, and they want information about their case right there on Facebook. And we would have to interrupt a lot of people working very hard to bring a lot of members back into service to find out very specific information. So it's again, Facebook is great to see the guys out there working, general information, but you're not going to get specific information about your case, not an ETA for restoration, and you're not supposed to report your outage on social.
Yeah, and just to follow up, even if you call, we can't give you specifics.
Yeah, same case.
We're looking at the same outage map they are. We can see, where the crews are, and that's about it. We can't really tell why it's out or what's going on or what an ETA is. So really a phone call just says, yes, we know it's out, and we're working on it. And that's about all we can say. So,
Well, we're getting close to the end of time, but, we're talking storms here. Do y'all have any memorable experiences? Shawn, what's one of your most memorable experiences? I remember dispatch at one time, with the old dispatch during a storm, there was an alligator right outside the door at one point. That was pretty memorable. Y'all got anything like that? Can you top that?
One of the most memorable things for me is, and it didn't even happen to me, was seeing after the storm, some of our members bringing breakfast out to the linemen. And that kind of touched me, because as many complaints as you get over the phone and people complaining about their lights out, it helps to understand that some members get it, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a tough job, and as much as you want your power back on, we want to get your power back on, and our crews are out there working in really tough conditions, and so when we see those random acts of kindness, we always appreciate them. Amy, you got anything to add from a memorable experience from the member services side?
My memories, interestingly enough, aren't really tied to my own experience. I have very vivid memories of my mom working through Hugo. I remember there being so many trees down, and walking down the road, climbing over trees as a 6-year-old to go meet her at the head of the road where the bucket truck was dropping her off to be home for a few hours.
Wow.
And I just remember thinking, man, she's doing something really important. She's working on getting power back on. And that has stuck with me for 33 years now. So, I remember even at that age recognizing that they were doing really important things. They were doing critical work, and it was important that my mom was at work and not home with us.
Yeah.
And so, I try to keep that in mind now when we're going through outages, and we're doing important stuff. It can be stressful, it can be tough, but people need power, and we've got a job to do. So.
Yeah, one of my memories is just actually having to sleep overnight in your office. Offices are not designed to be slept in, but when it comes to a major extended outage, we are here for the duration, and you got to get creative. You got to.
I've made more sandwiches here at work than I have ever made anywhere else. Yeah.
Well, and that's, as the rookie, my impression of the cooperative is just how wonderfully everybody comes together and works so hard to serve the membership. It really is something to behold. It's just great family teamwork. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for tuning in to Power Talk. This is the official broadcast of your electric cooperative. You can catch up on past episodes on streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio, and always get a behind-the-scenes look on Berkeley Electric's YouTube channel. So until next time, this is Power Talk, signing off.